afternoon, everybody. This is Vivica from the Nourished Caveman and the Healing Foods Method. Today I am live from Topanga, California at a beautiful friend's house here in not so sunny California anymore. It's getting dark already so soon. So today's topic is going to be cortisol and I'm going to talk for this whole month about adrenals, adrenal fatigue, adrenal exhaustion, adrenal crashes, and how to identify the condition, how to recognize this, then what to do about it, and identifying different patterns. And we'll talk about hormones and correlations. Next week we'll talk about adrenals and thyroid, and we'll talk about adrenals and sex hormones. This week I wanted to go a little bit deeper into cortisol itself, and specifically the patterns of cortisol, because those are very important and they affect our lives. Of course, cortisol, one famous doctor in nutrition said that the levels of cortisol are directly proportional to the quality of your life. So we really want to pay attention to, of course, quality of life, so cortisol levels. And we want to identify different patterns that are also going to tell us more about where we are at as we identify the symptoms. So let's jump in, but before that, I just want to thank all of you that are here watching, and please feel free to say hello and tell me where you're watching from and connect with me here on this live video. This is the reason why I do the videos live. Believe me, it would be a lot easier to record them before. So I didn't have to just remember all the script and have my little map here, but I want to do them live because I want to bring you the opportunity to have a conversation with me and to ask me questions. That's why it's called Keto Woman Q&A. So please do ask questions. Please do say hello. Let me know if somebody is out there. And also, when we first start the video, I always ask, please let me know if you can hear me and you can see me all right. So whoever is watching right now, if you would be so kind to leave a comment to let me know that video and audio are okay, because we are live and this is a new location. So I hope that the internet here is good enough to support a good stream. It's not always easy to get to do live videos. So I know somebody's watching, so please don't be afraid. Just say hello and all okay. Patty, yay Patty, thank you so much, appreciate that. So all okay, we're diving in then. I know so many of you who are following me or in general out there in America today are experiencing adrenal fatigue and just experiencing constant tiredness, exhaustion, fatigue, lack of energy, lack of motivation, depression, and some of you are experiencing a little bulge of a stubborn belly that doesn't go away no matter what you do. A very young woman said that to me in a comment not too long ago. She's like, no matter what I do, my belly does not go away. And she was not overweight, but had that little pouch. And those are all symptoms of high cortisol, possibly adrenal fatigue, possibly adrenal exhaustion. So today we'll start with talking about cortisol and cortisol patterns. Last week, and I'm gonna post this video on YouTube, so I'll put links to the videos that I'll be mentioning, but for those of you also watching on Facebook, please know that you can refer to last week's video where I talked about adrenal fatigue in general and help strategies and more about the adrenal physiology. This week I would like to talk more about cortisol specifically. So cortisol's levels are very critical, like we said, for the quality of life. What is cortisol for? Cortisol is a hormone, a signaling hormone. Like all hormones, what hormones do, they send signals so that our cells respond and they do certain functions. Cortisol also is a signaling and a regulator to other hormones. So it has a direct effect on, for example, our insulin or other hormones like testosterone, estrogen, DHEA. And those are all produced in the adrenals as well. This is live videos when your brain just betrays you in the moment where you need to remember things. And this is, interestingly enough, why am I doing this series in November on adrenal fatigue is because I realized at the beginning, actually at the end of October, that I was heading like a freight train towards adrenal crash. And hi Tammy, thanks for watching. One of the main symptoms, the big symptoms of adrenal crash is that your brain gets foggy in certain times. Now we are at 4 p.m. here in California, and for my pattern of cortisol, where the cortisol starts gently going down, this is happening too early. I'm already running out of steam. I have been working on myself intensively, so I am already way better from 3 weeks ago. My energy is slowly starting to come back, but my 4 p.m. slot for the Facebook Live is actually not ideal because this is the time of the day where after I've been pumping hard all day, working, calls, emails, patients, and then 4 p.m. comes around and I'm just like, okay, I'm ready to stop working. And you know, the demands of our life, they are real. We are actually constantly bombarded by things to do, the to-do list, the family, the job, the pets, the kids, everything. We are not designed to go at full speed all the time. And we'll talk more in the next couple of weeks about how perimenopause and menopause and cortisol will like interlace and interact so that it makes it even harder when we are transitioning into menopause to manage the adrenals and to keep those energy levels up all day. And this is real. This is what happens. And I'm sure that you can relate as well because, like, you know, any of you ladies who are going into menopause and you have to keep up with your full schedules, you will realize that some days are more difficult than others. So back to our cortisol levels. So what does a healthy cortisol pattern look like? First of all, imagine our nice little graph with our two parameters. So our cortisol should be at the highest spike in the morning. With a little pre-spike early morning, the cortisol should start gently coming up around 6-7 a.m. and then peak at the highest place around between 7 and 8 a.m. This also depends what time you usually get up because your circadian rhythms adapt. It also really depends on the season and the light outside, because light and daylight stimulate our pineal gland, which produces melatonin, which also interacts with cortisol in regulating our sleep pattern and regulating our energy patterns. So around, let's say around 7 a.m., our cortisol should be spiking the highest. And then gently starting sloping down like a very nice curve throughout the day to reach the lowest spot around 8 or 9 p.m. During the night, cortisol should stay low and then gently start increasing, and it's a pretty kind of rapid curve, the spike, that should start around 4 or 5 a.m. to start gently increasing and then spike again at 7 a.m. So this is a healthy cortisol pattern. Again, it is closely related and dependent on daylight, sunlight, and sleep cycles. Those are our energy cycles. You know, this is how the body regulates how we sleep, how we stay awake, with the energy we have for our day, and then our need to shut down and actually replenish and restore and rejuvenate. So unfortunately, because of the demands of the world and our modern world that we live in, stressors and electronics and artificial lights, all of these things interfere with our natural hormonal balance, and they imbalance that natural rhythm. So combined with constant stress, of course, and we talked about last week, about the adrenal function. Sorry, something is happening out there. It looks like there is an earthquake, but being California, the room is not shaking. At least I think it's gonna be okay. Things that happen during live videos, right? So let's talk about unhealthy patterns of cortisol and how to recognize them, and then we'll talk at the end of the video, of course, about what to do about them and how to heal from these unhealthy patterns. The first one is cortisol spikes too early. So instead of a nice 7 a.m. get ready for the day, cortisol can spike around 4 or 5 a.m. And those are the scenarios when you wake up in the middle of the night or very early morning, like 3 or 4 a.m., feeling anxiety. And you just wake up and you're kind of like up and you're like, what is going on? And you feel a spike of an urge of anxiety. Sleep is completely gone. And you just feel like you're ready for the day. Sometimes you might be able to go back to sleep, sometimes not. I have a lot of patients who actually wake up at 4:30 a.m. and they're just like, I can't go back to sleep. And then you will start feeling your energy decreasing to the point that at mid-morning or around noon, you will start crashing already. And that's the famous cases where at 3 p.m. you're just completely exhausted and ready for bed. And what happens in these cases is a lot of people, like in all dysfunctional cortisol curves, cortisol patterns, people mask those dysfunctional patterns with caffeine, stimulants, or with caffeine and sugar. So if you're not keto, because you are my audience and most of you are ketogenic, already keto adapted or doing a ketogenic diet. And so if you have more stable energy because of the lack of sugar and the lack of roller coaster up and down. That does not mean that you don't have adrenal fatigue. Just because you are doing a ketogenic diet and you are fat adapted, it does absolutely not mean that your adrenals cannot be stressed and you could not have an adrenal crash. Somebody is destroying a house right next door, I think, but I'm gonna continue with this video. Wow. Okay, so early spike of cortisol, crash around 3 p.m. and fueled by caffeine, trying to stay awake. And so this is where your sleep is really interrupted. And then in the morning, you're usually very much on edge and you're very confrontational and cranky. And then the energy ends up too early. So this is pattern number 1. Now, a second pattern, let me see, is that cortisol stays up, goes up in the morning, and then continues up, and the level never comes down. So it just stays elevated. It might crash eventually at some point during the night. But this pattern is usually one of the ones fueled by caffeine, a lot of caffeine throughout the day. Those typical people that drink 3, 4, 5 cups of coffee. Stress is consistent. You always feel like you're trying to catch up with yourself. You are on an endless to-do list. You have endless anxiety. The anxiety never subsides, and you're wired. So is that tired and wired feeling? Anybody can relate to that? And then at night, you're exhausted, but you're still wired and you're having a very hard time going to bed, winding down, finally relaxing. Those are people who end up usually in those vicious cycles of coffee in the morning and maybe wine at night. So if you're just wired all day, rushing all day, 5 cups of coffee, and then about 7, 8 p.m., you're so exhausted and you're needing to disconnect, and you maybe have a couple of glasses of wine. And for other people's, it could be other ways to wind down. But wine or alcohol is very readily accessible. And I have a lot of clients that, not knowing any better and really needed to like slow down, they reach for a glass of wine. Which a glass of wine in itself, ladies, is not really that bad. It's not that bad for you, right? It's when you use it as a medication to mask a symptom. There is a really cute bird trying to get in that window. So much action here today. Usually I'm in my office where it's all quiet and calm, locks the dogs outside, but here there is a lot of action going on. Beauty of live videos. I will be editing this out for the YouTube video, I think. And thank you for the comments, by the way, Natalie and Renee. Yes, a lot of women are struggling with this, so please ask questions if you have any, but we'll get more into the what to do about it in a second. The third dysfunctional cortisol pattern is high in the evening. So you're pretty much like tired all day, you wake up late. It's kind of people that cannot get out of bed in the morning, and you need, again, 3 cups of coffee to get out of bed in the morning, and you're late, like very slow to carburate in the morning. And then slowly with the day start picking up, you start, feeling better and better. But then at night, you're really active and you stay up late, watching TV, working late, engaging, very active. Your mind is on fire, and you have a really hard time going to bed. So it ends up being like 2, 3, 4 in the morning going to bed, and then until 10, 11, you're not able to lift a finger. And being with a lot of younger people, especially working from home and working on the internet, or working for ourselves at our own schedule and with the digital media, I see this happening more and more and more, because people, a lot of younger people too have this a little bit different cortisol pattern or circadian rhythm, where they prefer to stay up at night and then they sleep late in the morning. But this tends to funnel into a really bad cortisol pattern. So the last one is, of course, as you suspect, like the progression that cortisol goes high, it goes high, at different times, it goes high at the wrong times, and then is high all the time, and then finally the adrenals cannot keep up with this kind of cortisol production, and it crashes. So you're finally at low levels of cortisol all day. And these are the people who cannot get out of bed and drag throughout the day. You find yourself being depressed, demotivated, just really like lacking flavor for life or desire for life, and pretty much fueled by caffeine all day long, or sugar if you're not doing keto. Those are people who like reach for sugar as strategic points during the day to just like keep them going. And also, you will tend to fall asleep kind of everywhere, especially like in a car, or if you're like just sitting down for 5 minutes anywhere, like passing out. That means your cortisol is in the pits, is tanked. And that is what adrenal exhaustion looks like. It's like taking the kids to school and then coming home and just laying on the couch and not being able to lift a finger, looking at the house. The house is a disaster, and you just like you just want to die because you don't know what to do with yourself, and you don't have the power to get off that sofa. And this is not being lazy, it is real. It's called adrenal exhaustion. This is where we do not want to get to. And hopefully you won't have to get it if you heed the advice, do the right steps, get the help of a professional to heal if you're really there. Once you are there, it's not that easy to reverse. So it means you just need to do a little bit more work and you need to do the right steps in order to reverse that exhaustion. So what can we do? What can we do to reset those dysfunctional adrenal patterns? For me, one of the most important things, so we'll talk diet, we'll talk lifestyle, and then we'll talk supplementation. The first most important thing is to get your food where it is supportive of these healthy cortisol patterns. It's called a cyclical low carb diet. Cyclical, I'm saying that right? This is what people who are not keto are calling it, a cyclical low carb. So there is less carbs in the morning, more carbs at night. For those of us who are doing keto, or even, this would be hard with carnivore, because as a carnivore, you are not getting any carbs ever. And this is the topic of a whole other video, but I touched upon this topic about carnivore for women and women through perimenopause and menopause. I talked about it with Sean Baker in his podcast. I don't always think that carnivore is appropriate when we are struggling with certain issues as women, but let's not go into that rabbit hole and come back to what is a supportive diet. So for those of us who are doing keto paleo and have been already keto adapted and maintaining our low carb keto lifestyle for long term, when your adrenals, you might have gone too low carb and maybe for too long, and that combined with hormonal changes could have sent your adrenals over the hill. So what I usually recommend is to bring on some carb ups, some carb cycling. And the way I do it is I stay in very strict keto in the morning, pretty strict keto at lunch, and then towards afternoon, evening, bring in strategic carb ups depending on your need. How many days a week, how many times a week, really depending on your individual need, but reintroducing some strategic healthy carbs. I will remember watching an interview a couple of years ago with a very famous fitness guy that was talking about carb cycling with keto, and he started talking about carb ups before anybody else basically was talking about them. But he was recommending doing carb ups with bear claws and donuts. This is not what I recommend. I do not recommend bringing in your carbs in the form of sugars. We could use healthy starches like sweet potatoes, or sometimes rice, or cooled rice as a resistant starch, work as a carb up. The best carb up for me is doing good healthy veggies, sometimes fruit, but definitely fruit in moderation. And the difference between one person and another, again, it will depend on your individual sensitivities, and it will also depend on your gut needs, because everybody's guts is different. Let's talk about lifestyle. So there are a few of very important lifestyle modifications that you can do to help reset those cortisol levels. The first one is going to sleep early. Going to sleep, within 10 and 11 at night. I would say maximum for those of you who are really exhausted, 9 and 10 would be a good time. And then waking up also early, waking up ideally with the sun, as now especially the days are longer, so it's not so bad like in summer when might need to wake up at 5 in the morning, 4 in the morning. But now we can wake up at 7, between 7 and 8, depending on your work schedule. It's very important for women to get enough sleep, more than for men, because our hormones, of course. So for us, 7, 8, even 9 hours sometimes is adequate sleep. If you feel like you are still 9 p.m. is a good time to go to bed, Renee. Yes, I definitely approve of that. And what time do you wake up in the morning? So 9 p.m. would be until about 6 in the morning, 5:30. That would be a really good amount of sleep. Hopefully uninterrupted. So the quality of your sleep really helps. Of course, you hear everybody talking about having a dark room, that the room should be cool and dark and not noisy, so really quiet, so that the quality of your sleep can be improved. What I do, because I travel a lot, I'm everywhere all the time, traveling out of the country and back and forth between Northern and Southern California, I use a cloth over my eyes, earplugs, and I bring my own pillow everywhere so that I have at least, the minimum of comfort and the minimum of like sensory deprivation to try to get the best possible sleep. Go to bed between 7 and 8, get up at 4:30. That is pretty good, yes. I think that's really good aligned with the circadian rhythm, with the light cycle right now, Tammy, so that's great. Good job on that. So we want to go to sleep early, then we want to wake up early and do our workouts in the morning, especially in high intensity workouts. They will spike your cortisol, so make sure you do those first thing in the morning. Do not go do a bunch of cardio at night, because then forget sleeping, and again you're working against your cortisol cycle. Another great thing to do is get daylight. Go outside, especially first thing in the morning. Even if for 10-15 minutes, expose your face to the sun or to just the daylight. Even if you live in northern areas and it's really cold, try to go outside, maybe park your car a block away and just walk for a block and get some light on your face. If it's sunny, make sure you get sun on your face. It will affect your pineal gland and your melatonin production again. And then another big one can be wearing blue blockers at night. What are blue blockers? I'm going to put, for those of you who don't know it, I'll put a link in the comments. But they're cheapy little sunglasses you can buy on Amazon, and they're amber color, so they mimic the light of the sunlight, because we are not supposed to be exposed to daylight, blue light in the evening. This frequency, temperature of light that will hit our retina will actually influence our brain and the production of melatonin again, and the secretion of cortisol. So it's all connected. So a $10 worth of sunglasses, if you're the kind of person who watches TV at night for hours, or you're working on the computer, or you have a bunch of neon lights in your house, it's really helpful. It's better than to have to change all the light bulbs, or, drastically changing your habits. That alone can help. Now, the last little thing that we need to touch on is supplementation. So how do we supplement to help restore our cortisol rhythms? First one is adaptogen herbs. I mention them all the time, like ashwagandha, rehmannia, rhodiola, licorice. Those are all plants, herbs that help us bringing in a little amount of stress on our body on a daily basis, so that our body can get used to higher level of stressors and not be so affected. Of course, I do not recommend generic supplements, because they could be very different for each and every one of us. Some people who are very sensitive to nightshades cannot have ashwagandha, because ashwagandha is a nightshade. So don't just indiscriminately supplement. I think the best thing to do is always working with a professional. B-complex vitamins, a lot of Renee says I try for 6, we're on 5. That's still good, Renee. So a lot of people are vitamin B deficient. You might need to supplement with B vitamins. B vitamin complex, please use one that is food-based and not a synthetic B complex that you can buy over the counter everywhere. They're not necessarily good for you. Renee, yes, it is absolutely possible. Ashwagandha is both stimulating and relaxing. So you can take it in the morning to have more energy, or you can take it at night to help you sleep. Isn't it interesting? And the last one is vitamin C. For example, That's an interesting thing. B vitamins make me sleepy, but yes, there are two kinds of B vitamins, Renee. There are one part of the B complex is fat soluble, one part is water soluble. The fat soluble part of the B complex is actually vasodilator and relaxant. And so when I supplement for B vitamins for my patients, I have two different supplements that are the two different sides of the B vitamins, and I give one in the morning to get up and have energy, and one at night to actually go to sleep and relax. So vitamin C, acerola powder is a great form of vitamin C that can be easily absorbed, and it will feed your adrenals. All right. Well, I think we are at the end of today's video. I think I covered all my topics that I wanted to cover for today. Do you have any questions? This would be a great time to ask them, post them here, and I should get them right away so I can still answer them before the end of the video. Thank you so much for watching, and please follow me if you know me or you don't know me. I am a keto nutritionist. I help women optimize their hormone balance. I help them just with adrenals and thyroid and sex hormones, with periods, with transition into menopause. Anything that is hormonal is my specialty. You can find me on my website on thenourishedcaveman.com. You can find me here on Facebook, the Nourished Caveman page, and you can find me on Instagram and then on YouTube, where this video is also going to end up. Please feel free to ask questions. Vitamin C, how much per day? I would say at least 500 milligrams a day, depending on your need and on the level on your fatigue. Going towards winter, we might need more, so we might want to up it to 1,000 milligrams a day. And there are times like when we're getting sick that we might want to go even higher. Make sure that it's not ascorbic acid. I'm not sure what the question means. What about mitochondria? Renee, can you explain? So don't use ascorbic acid, because that is only one part of the C complex. When you get a whole food based vitamin C, then the whole C complex, including the enzymes, is present. This is another conversation that could get lengthy, so I'm going to wrap it up for now. Please ask if you want to ask under the video. I can always reply later. Thank you so much again for following me, for watching, and if you need help, you can always email me at Vivica, V-I-V-I-C-A, at thenourishedcaveman.com. I hope you have a wonderful week, and I'll see you here next week for adrenals, another chapter, and we will talk about adrenals and thyroid next week. Thank you so much.